Hi there, students. Time frame or timeline? What's the difference? Okay, the timeline is the series of events. So this happened at 4 o'clock, and this happened at 4:15, and this happened at 4:30, and this happened at 5 o'clock, and this happened the next day. That's the timeline, the sequence of events. But the time frame normally talks about the period of time in which something took place. So, for example, could you give me a time frame for how long it's going to take you to construct this building? So the time frame is perhaps a year. It's going to take us a year to construct this building. But the time frame, no. Day 1, we start to dig foundations. Day 20, we pour the foundations. Day 50, we start to build the walls, etc. So the timeline is the sequence of events, whereas the time frame is the period of time in which it's going to happen. It's the period of time during which something is expected to occur or does occur. So the timeline of the Second World War, 1939 it starts, but the time frame was 5.5 years. Okay, the period of time in which it happened. So the timeline is like a timetable. It's a schedule of activities. It's a chronological sequence of events. One thing happens after another. A timetable of events. This is the timeline for this project. But the time frame is the period in which it's expected to occur. How long? Yeah, the timeline talks about the chronological order of things, the order in which events happen, a line or a picture that shows this. So the police put together a timeline of events before the crime took place. The timeline, so if you look at a big oil company, the timeline of its coming into existence from JP Morgan and Standard Oil to its position today, a timeline through history, the timeline for the implementation of an agreement, to establish a timeline, a roadmap of how things are going to do, to set a timeline. So your troops need to withdraw. We need to set a timeline for how this is going to happen. Yeah, withdraw 50% within the next 6 months. So a timeline for the completion of the project. A timeline, the series of events that have happened to somebody. In a book or a film, this is the events, and very often in a film you will have different events happening at the same time or at different times, and you are looking at the timeline. Very often a film will have several timelines that run simultaneously to each person. Okay, and then the time frame, the period of days, weeks, months in which an activity is going to happen. So could you set a time frame for completing the job? This will be completed within a short time frame. It's going to be completed in a very long time frame, within a certain time frame. I might not finish this within the time frame. A 10-year time frame, a 2-hour time frame, a limited time frame, a long time frame, the time frame in order to do something, the time frame for doing something, to set a time frame for a particular idea. Okay, so this time frame is talking about how long things are going to take. Whereas the timeline is the order in which events take place. Yeah, it's a representation of the sequence of events, particularly historical events. The time during which it's going to where there are deadlines for things. In social media, you could have a timeline showing the activity at different dates, the order in which it happened. Whereas the time frame is the length of time in which it's going to happen, the length of time over which it's going to develop. Yeah, it's an interval of time, particularly related to an event or a process. So could you give me a time frame for the completion of this project? So the timetable is the timeline is a timetable, a schedule, whereas the time frame is the time limit, it's the deadlines, the period of time in which it's going to happen. So you're being very optimistic about the timeline for the project. Yeah, you're also being optimistic about the time frame that it will take. Use deadlines to establish the timeline, and then the time frame. This is a very short time frame. So the line and the frame, and that's really the difference. I think I'm going to give both of these words 5.5, maybe 6 in formality. I think you can use them anywhere. I think they're best in something semi-formal conversation, semi-formal or formal writing. So, timeline, time frame.